And so when we slow down in practices such as meditation, I'm saying that the unintegrated past can catch up with us because, of course, everything that we haven't integrated is still living in our body. So the sadness that I didn't integrate because there wasn't somebody around me to encourage me to do that gets basically held in my heart, in my throat, in my belly, and that energy, because that's what an emotion is, it's an energy that needs to be in motion. You could say gets stuck, it gets stagnant, it becomes areas of dense, usually pockets of energy that usually have kind of tense walls around them to hold them in and down. Because oftentimes, on top of these unintegrated energies, there's shame, there's fear, there's anger, there's lots of protectors on top of these energies. And so they become kind of sequestered away in our body. And there's many, many effects to that. One is that when energy is blocked in our body, it prevents the proper functioning of our physical body in the first place. So if I've got an energy that is kind of stagnant in my heart, it could affect my circulation, but it could also affect my breasts. It could affect my thymus gland, which is my gland of immunity. So all the tissues that rely on good energy flow through the heart area are going to be affected. So it affects us physically. It also affects us emotionally. So when I haven't integrated certain emotions and I begin to contract around them, a lot of times what happens is as I contract around sadness, I'm also going to be contracting around joy because you can't selectively just contract around the what we call the negative emotions. Basically, all emotions are running on the same circuitry. And so and in our culture, of course, it's the so-called negative emotions that we tend to shame people for or just really not allow ourselves to feel. But you can't selectively just do the negative emotions. So what happens is we become quite numb to all of our feelings. And so as we block sadness, we also find that we have a hard time feeling joy. We have a hard time accessing joy. As we block anger, we also have a hard time perhaps accessing compassion. So, so unintegrated emotions or the unintegrated past also is going to affect our whole capacity to be fluid emotionally, which I feel is what we are supposed to be, and also to feel each other, right? Human beings are meant to share emotional states, and when they're congested here, then it's hard to connect with other people on that emotional level. Not only that, we get into many patterns to keep avoiding our emotions. Patterns like being overly busy, filling our schedules too much, being distracted, connecting only on surface level with people, um, certain eating, gambling, all these things that we do to distract ourselves are patterns that are really sitting right on top of our unintegrated past. And not only that, is that the light of our soul, which is the deepest truth of our being, is always here, but like a lamp that has all these scarves over it, the light can't be seen through all of this unintegrated past. So that's another reason why it's necessary, if we want to connect to our deepest light, it's necessary to allow these unintegrated energies to come to the surface and to let them integrate themselves. So there's many reasons why we want to stop long enough to let our unintegrated past catch up with us. But what happens is that, so many people feel quite maybe inspired to begin a meditation practice or to do a retreat or something. But as soon as they stop, they're kind of overtaken by all of the things that they have been running away from. Sort of like our fisherman in the skeleton story, who was, running away from the skeleton woman. And and then finally, when he did stop, and this is why it's important to find that stillness, when he did stop and he sensed that sense of safety within himself, that allowed him to turn towards the skeleton woman and to actually see it for what it was, right? So we're running away from something we're not really intimate from. We don't even know anymore what we're running away from. And so this is why the stillness is really important, to slow down, and to know that sometimes when we start meditating, when we start finding more stillness in our life, it may not feel all that great, or at least sometimes it kind of partially feels good, to just finally stop. But then there's also things that are going to show up, that unintegrated past. And I think it's really important. I always just say, that's just basically what's going to happen. And as far as I know, it happens to everybody that starts slowing down. And so just to know that it's part of the process. It's part of the process that as we begin to stop and the past catches up, some of those things that we have been running away from, though some of those things that we have been distracting ourselves from, will show up. And that's why this next step towards integrating stress and alchemizing stress is to turn towards, right? Because maybe all of our lives we've been turning away from grief or from fear or from anger or from hatred or from jealousy, all of those ones that we're not supposed to feel. But every emotion is sacred. Every emotion is a portal. Every stressful situation is a portal. And so this invitation to turn towards is a reminder, essentially, to pay attention to what we are turning away from and to really become curious about what shows up when we stop, when we come into stillness. And to know that when more challenging feelings show up when we are in stillness, this is a good sign. This means that our unintegrated past is catching up. And it's in the very stillness, just as our fishermen, that we are giving ourselves access to the qualities of soul that will enable us to turn towards what it is that is here, with compassion, with kindness, with curiosity, with humility, a willingness to see it as though for the first time, a willingness to let go of our stories